If leadership theory has ever felt like a bad group project between dead white guys and buzzwords, this episode is for you. Welcome back to the Fulcrum Lab podcast, where we talk intelligence, strategy, leadership, and discernment, and occasionally turn 100 years of leadership theory into something you can use between meetings. This is the second episode in our leadership series. Last time, we started with followership. How you follow shapes how you lead. Today, we're going to do a fast, slightly irreverent tour through the big leadership theories people argue about in books and PhD programs, and then boil them down into a handful of ideas you can carry in your head without needing a whiteboard and a pot of coffee. Think of this as the Netflix Previously on Leadership recap. What we used to believe, what we realized we were missing, and what we've learned the hard way over the last century or so. Let's go back to the early 1900s. Back then, the dominant idea was what people call the great man theory. Leaders were born, not made. Leadership was something a few special people just had, and the rest of us were basically extras in their movie. We held up historic figures, generals, kings, presidents, and tried to reverse engineer what made them special: intelligence, confidence, charisma, determination. They were tall in the paintings, so we probably decided height mattered too. It was very comforting if you happened to see yourself as one of these great men, less comforting if you were everyone else. Trait theory grew out of that. If we could just find the right mix of traits, intelligence, self-confidence, integrity, extroversion, determination, maybe we could identify leaders early and funnel them into the good parking spots. Traits matter, of course. You probably don't want your nuclear launch authority going to someone with low integrity and high indecision. But over time, we realized the trait approach had some big issues. Plenty of people with the right traits turned out to be lousy leaders. Plenty of quiet, unassuming types ended up being extraordinary once circumstances called for it. Traits are part of the story, not the whole thing. Then came scientific management, the humans are basically machines phase. The idea was if you standardize everything, write perfect procedures, and crank out efficiency, you can minimize human variance. Translation: if people would just behave like predictable cogs, life would be easier. You still see this attitude today when someone says, "Why do I always get the whole person when all I really want is a pair of hands?" Henry Ford literally said that. It didn't age well. Beyond being dehumanizing, it completely misses the value of someone's creativity, experience, and judgment. You can have a millionaire drilling holes on a line and never tap what's actually in their head. Thankfully, the pendulum started to swing. Human relations theories showed up and said, hey, people are not just units of labor. They have social and psychological needs. Leaders should care about workers as people, not just as cost centers. Morale, belonging, and meaning turned out to matter for performance. Who knew? That realization set up the next big shift. From roughly the 1940s to the 1970s, the focus moved from what leaders are to what leaders do. Behavioral approaches said, let's study actual behaviors. Do you focus only on the task or also on the people? That's where the famous managerial grid comes from, balancing concerns for results with concern for relationships. At the same time, people started cataloging leadership skills, technical skills, can you do the job, interpersonal skills, can you work with people without starting fires, and conceptual skills, can you think beyond today's to-do list? And as you move up in an organization, the mix of those three changes. Out of that came ideas like Theory X and Theory Y. If you see people as lazy and needing constant supervision, Theory X, you lead one way, heavy controls, lots of micromanagement. If you see people as generally motivated and capable of responsibility, Theory Y, you lead a different way, more trust, more participation. Same followers, different assumptions, radically different experience for everyone. The theory you hold in your head about human nature leaks into how you manage, even if you never say it out loud. Then between the 1970s and 1990s, the conversation finally noticed the other half of the dance, followers. Situational leadership showed up and said, look, there is no one perfect leadership style. You have to adjust based on what your followers need right now. Sometimes they need more direction, sometimes more support, sometimes both, sometimes mostly freedom. If you treat a brand new airman and a 20-year chief the same way, one of them is getting shortchanged. Path goal theory added, leaders should help clear the way. Set clear goals. Help people plan and remove obstacles. You're not just assigning tasks, you're actively making it easier for people to succeed. Leader-member exchange theory said, hey, the quality of the relationship between each leader and follower actually matters for how things turn out. It's not just leader versus group, it's lots of micro relationships. Around this time, servant leadership and transformational leadership began to take off. Servant leadership flips the pyramid. The leader's job is to serve the highest needs of the followers, to listen, to empathize, to invest in their growth. Power is used for others' benefit, not self-protection. Transformational leadership focuses on changing organizations by tapping into people's intrinsic motivation. Instead of you do this, I give you that, transactional, you get we are pursuing something meaningful together, idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, individualized consideration. Fancy phrases for be someone they respect, point to a compelling purpose, challenge them to think, and treat them like individuals. From the 1990s to now, theory has kept layering. Emotional intelligence showed up and said, you know what? All your technical skill won't save you if you're a walking emotional train wreck. Self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, social skill. These aren't soft skills, they're survival skills. Authentic leadership put the spotlight on self-knowledge and integrity. Know your values, live them consistently. Bring your whole self to work instead of wearing a mask so long you forget who you are. Leader purposefulness emphasized the why, not just what you're doing or how, but why it matters. When people see purpose in their work, commitment and satisfaction go up. And servant leadership didn't go away. If anything, research on it has grown. Leaders who genuinely value and develop people, build real community, act authentically, provide and share leadership. Those leaders tend to create healthier, more resilient organizations, which again is not shocking if you've ever worked for someone who did the opposite. So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, Robert, that's great, but I have a job and maybe some kids and limited brain bandwidth. Do I really need to carry around 100 years of theory to be a decent leader? Well, thankfully, no. In this episode, I boil all of this down into 4 big threads that are worth remembering, because they show up again and again in the theories that actually work. First, servant leadership and follower focus. The basic idea is people first, mission always. Not people instead of mission, and not mission at the expense of people, but the belief that the best way to accomplish the mission is to genuinely prioritize your people's well-being and development. There's a business example of this in Southwest Airlines philosophy. Leaders say employees are their first priority, customers second. Why? Because if you love and support your employees well, they will love and support your customers well. That's not soft, it's strategic. Second, transformational leadership and shared ownership. Instead of treating work like a series of transactions, I pay you, you do the thing, we're done. You invite people into a shared mission. You help them see how their work connects to something bigger. When followers feel that intrinsic connection, you don't have to drag them. They push with you. That doesn't mean every task feels epic. Sometimes the mission is update the spreadsheet. But people can endure a lot of update the spreadsheet if they believe it's part of something meaningful. Third, team leadership and collaboration. This is the anti-smartest person in the room approach. It starts with the humility to believe there is great wisdom inside your team. Your job as a leader is not to be the genius who has all the answers, but the architect who creates a system where the best ideas can surface and be acted on. Unity of effort, autonomy of action, clear shared goals, but real freedom in how people execute within their lanes. Micromanagers hate this. High-performing teams love it. Fourth, purposefulness and meaningful work. People want to feel like they're building a cathedral, not just laying bricks. Good leaders are constantly connecting the dots between tasks and purpose. This report matters because. This training matters because. And followers have a part in this too. Engaging your work with energy and curiosity instead of just clock punching. Even in imperfect systems, you can choose to see your work as part of something worthwhile, or notice when it genuinely isn't, and make changes. So which theory should you pick? Great man, trait, servant, transformational, authentic, emotional intelligence? My answer is, don't pick a label. Steal the best parts. Take the trait theory's emphasis on integrity and courage. Take behavioral theory's insistence that you balance results and relationships. Take situational leadership's flexibility to meet people where they are. Take servant leadership's heart for your followers. Take transformational leadership's focus on shared purpose. Take emotional intelligence's wake-up call about self-awareness. Mix them into how you show up tomorrow. And remember, all of this connects back to followership. If you've convinced yourself you are the great man or great woman destined to lead the unwashed masses, you will be a terrible follower. You'll also be a fragile leader, because your whole identity will rest on being special. If you see leadership instead as a set of skills and habits that can be learned, practiced, and shared, then followership stops being what you do until you get promoted and becomes how we treat each other, no matter where we sit. As we go deeper in this series, we're going to translate these big ideas into practical practices. How you model what matters, evaluate your honesty, foster collaboration, value and appreciate people, make space for individuality, communicate clearly, provide accountability, and actually support your followers instead of just tasking them. But for today, here's your assignment. This week, pay attention to which theory you're living out. When you walk into a meeting, do you behave like a great man or great woman, assuming you're the only one with good ideas? Do you treat people like interchangeable parts and then wonder why morale is low? Or do you show up as a servant-minded, emotionally intelligent, purpose-driven leader who believes there is wisdom in the room and sees your job as unlocking it? You don't have to give your team a lecture on leadership theory. They already know which one you believe because they feel it every day. This is the Fulcrum Lab Podcast. In the next episode in our leadership series, we're going to get practical and model what matters, not just admire in theory.